Thank you for joining my YouTube channel where we discuss problems in sailing a small sailboat, a sailing dinghy. Today we will be discussing problems I had in placing a mooring cover on my American Sail 14.6, which is a small sloop rig sailing dinghy. I ordered my mooring cover from American Sail. The cover was specifically designed for my sailboat. However, when I went to place it, I found that it was very difficult to put on the boat because the elastic cords, which go under the gunnels, and we'll talk about that when I put the cover on the boat, were of such length that it required stretching them to the full extent of their elasticity of their cord in order to reach from one connection to the next. What I mean by that is that elastic cord has a limit to stretch. Elastic cord can sometimes stretch 50% of its relaxed length. Elastic cord can sometimes stretch 100% of its relaxed length. It depends on the cord. The cord that was supplied with the boat cover could stretch to 100% of its relaxed length. However, it was cut such that it was required that it stretch to 100% of its relaxed length, or perhaps even more, in order to place on the boat cover. Because of this, I had a great deal of trouble putting the cover on the boat due to the problems I had stretching the cord. In addition to this, I found that the loops were formed with a wire clip. These loops were either, as shown here, with no hook attached or with a hook attached. Because of this, when I returned after placing the mooring cover for the first time, I found that it had pulled off of the boat, and when I examined the cover, I found that a couple of the clips had actually broken off and that the loops were gone, so there was no way that the cover could stay on the boat. I did contact American Sail, and they were very nice. They did take back the cover I had and sent me a new one. However, in requesting the replacement cover, I asked that they cut the cords longer. However, the cover I received was just a new one, manufactured the way that they had before, and on placing that cover, the clips again pulled off and the cover came off of the boat after had been gone for a week. At that point, I decided that I was going to fix the cord myself. I did purchase bungee cord or elastic cord from Ace Hardware. I found that the amount of elasticity of the bungee cord was about 50%. In other words, I could stretch it to 50% greater than its relaxed length. I did measure along the seam where the sleeve was sewn in order to place the cord, and from that length I subtracted 1 foot. I did add a few inches on each side of that for the hook, so it was probably a little less than a foot that I cut the cord shorter than the seam length. For the hook, I used a polished stainless steel round swivel eye bolt snap, and for the clamp I used a stainless steel wire rope clip as shown in this picture. I wrapped this all in black electrician's tape then in order to protect the boat, and this is what the final hook looked like. I am now ready to place the mooring cover on the boat. A couple of things to note. Number one, there is no main sheet on. That would get in the way. Also, the rudder is off of the boat. One thing that I did not do in placing the cover this time, which I would advise, would be to use the topping lift to raise the boom a little bit. Our ultimate goal is to make a tent out of the mooring cover to repel water, and that means that the cover needs to be tight to the boom and lifted, so you'll want to raise that. I start at the bow of the boat and will place the clip around the front. I then move back to the mast. There's a collar on the mooring cover and a little rope loop that I place that rope loop over the downhaul cleat of the mast. I will then wrap, there's a rope at the collar, and I'll wrap that around the collar, and then I'll work down to the shroud. I will next zip up the zipper of the boat cover. Now it's very important to be careful not to catch the fabric that lies along the zipper in the zipper, so be careful with that as you bring it up. And you can see here I had a little problem. The fabric did get caught in the zipper, and I had to work it backwards a couple of times in order to bring the zipper up. And there I pull the fabric apart, and then I zip it on up. And then I'll tie the collar around the mast, and I'll do that with a reef knot or a square knot. I'm going to next clip the bungee around the shroud. Truth in advertising here, I'm not at a mooring, I'm actually on a lift. I must admit I don't know how one would place this cover at a mooring, as again the elastic's very tight. So I clip the cover around the shroud, and then I make sure that the elastic is underneath the gunnel. And that's what I'm doing here, just making sure that the elastic cord is underneath the gunnel. And then I will now place a rope which is tied to the elastic cord. I'm going to place that under the boat, and I'll eventually connect it to the other side to hold the cover on better, especially in wind and stuff like that. The choice of knot could either be a bowline or 2 half hitches. I'm using a bowline here. Again, I adjust to make sure that the bungee is underneath the gunnel. I'm going to now work to the stern of the boat. This part is very hard, especially with the elastic cord which is supplied with the cover, because the stretch from the bow to the stern, it will stretch the elastic cord supplied to 100% of its stretch, and that's what required me to replace the cord in the front. Now on this cover I have not had to replace the cord on the stern part of the cover. Once I replaced it on the bow part of the cover, I didn't need to do that. So then I'm pulling that over tight, just stretching it, and again making sure that the elastic cord is all underneath the gunnel. Then I'll come over to the port side of the boat and stretch the cover again. I then work forward to the port side shroud, and I'm going to connect the elastic cord around the shroud on this side. Once that's connected, then I will collect the rope that I tossed in the water that was attached to the other side and bring it up here and tie it. You can see how the cover goes around the shroud. Okay. So I'm using a boat hook to collect the rope. So I'll bring that over. I'll bring that over the elastic cord, put a little snugness on it, although it's not tight, and I'll tie two half hitches. It is now time to make a tent of the boat cover. It will be brought up next to the boom as close as possible. Basically, I bring the ropes attached to the cover over the boom, pull it tight, and tie two quick half hitches. I find that the best way to do this is start at the aft end of the cover and work forward, and then when I get to the forward part of the cover, then I work backwards again. So I'll go from stern to bow, then bow to stern, and I may do it more than once. I may do it a couple of times in order to get enough tension on this. Now again, you can see the problem with the boom not being raised high enough is there a limit to how far I can raise the cover and get that good tinting. Again, the tinting is very important, that it prevents water from pooling on the cover. And I will say that I do have trouble with water pooling on the cover on occasion, because I do have trouble getting the cover tight enough. Lastly, since I have not been able to replace all of the bungee that was supplied with the cover, I have not been able to connect the hook to the loop in the stern part of on the stern part of the boat. So what I've done is I've used a bungee cord supplied by stores and just connected it back there. And that's what you see. And there's my boat cover.